The void of space stretched endlessly cold and silent, broken only by the distant hum of energy fields protecting the mighty Krythos. Armada, hundreds of alien warships drifted in perfect formation, their sleek black hulls glowing faintly under the light of a dying star. Commander Zirek Tor stood on the command deck of the flagship, his scaled hands clasped tightly behind his back. His 4 golden eyes fixed on the holographic display in front of him. This was supposed to be a simple mission. The eradication of the last known human colony hidden somewhere within the Orvus sector. The humans were supposed to be extinct. The Great Purge 100 years ago had wiped them out. Also the Krythos believed, but Zirek knew better. Humans were stubborn, dangerous, unpredictable. If even a single warship had survived, they could become a threat again. The silence broke. Suddenly a sharp alarm echoed through the command deck. Alien officers twisted in their chairs, their tendrils flicking nervously. Zirek's second-in-command, Captain Vera, hissed softly. "Sensors are picking up an anomaly ahead, Commander," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Zirek moved closer. "Show me!" He demanded. The holographic display shifted, focusing on a distant blip. Approaching fast. At first it looked like nothing more than an asteroid. Its energy signature faint, almost non-existent. But then the sensors locked on fully, and the screen began to change. Zirek froze, every muscle in his body going rigid. It was not an asteroid. A hushed silence swept across the deck. The object had shape symmetry, design, unmistakable engineering. It was a ship, but not just any ship. Its silhouette was brutal, angular, built for war, and the readings from its hull were unlike anything the Krythos had seen in centuries. Zirek's voice came out as a low growl. "Identify it." One of the junior officers stammered, struggling to speak, their mandibles clicking nervously, cross-referencing historical data. "Commander, it matches ancient records. From the war, it's human." The word hung in the air like a curse. "Human," Zirek repeated slowly, his throat tightening. The officers looked at each other, whispering in hushed tones. The younger ones had never even seen a human. Their race had become more myth than memory. To them, a ghost from the past, a nightmare. Parents used to frighten hatchlings into obedience. Humans were dangerous, not because they were stronger or faster, but because they were relentless. Their warships had once burned entire sectors, their tactics had toppled empires, and now, against all belief, one was here. The ship was closing fast, its engines burning hotter than anything the Krythos fleet possessed. Zirek leaned forward. "Open a channel," he ordered Vera. Hesitated. "Commander, do you think it will respond?" Zirek snapped open a channel. Now the order was obeyed. Static hissed across the speakers. Zirek stared at the dark, empty screen. "We are the Krythos Armada. This sector is under our control. Identify yourself." Silence. Then a faint sound, almost mechanical, almost alive. Zirek's scaled hands tightened on the railing. "Repeat. This is Commander Zirek Tor of the Krythos Armada. Identify your vessel." More silence. Captain Vera swallowed hard. "Sensors show no response, Commander. It's ignoring us." Zirek's tail lashed against the floor, frustration boiling beneath his calm exterior. It was rare for anything to ignore a direct hail from the Krythos Armada. Rare and dangerous. Suddenly another officer shouted, "Commander, new readings. The human ship is powering up its systems. Weapons online." The words hit the crew like a shockwave across the deck. Alien officers hissed and shouted at each other, fear spreading like wildfire. Zirek raised his hand for silence, his golden eyes burning as he studied the approaching warship. Its hull markings came into focus, a single word etched in ancient human script. Nemesis. Zirek knew the stories. Every Krythos child did. Nemesis was said to be the flagship of the human fleet, a warship so advanced it was believed indestructible, designed not just to fight, but to outthink its enemies. Entire fleets had been destroyed by its strategies during the war, and now, against all reason, it was here the Krythos Armada outnumbered Nemesis 500 ships to 1. Yet Zirek felt no confidence deep in his chest. An old primal fear stirred, the kind of fear his ancestors must have felt when they first faced humans a century ago. Vera whispered, "Commander, do we attack?" Zirek hesitated. His instinct screamed yes, overwhelm it before it can react. But another voice deep inside warned him that might be exactly what Nemesis wanted. Before he could decide, the ship vanished. Gasps rippled across the deck officers. Frantically scanned their panels, shouting over one another, "Commander, it's gone! Cloak technology confirmed!" Zirek snarled. Impossible. Human stealth was never this advanced. Vera's tendrils twitched nervously. Sensors are trying to reacquire the target. No success. It's completely invisible. The Krythos Armada shifted formation ships, moving into defensive positions. Plasma cannons, charging shields, raised tension, thickened in the command deck. Like a living thing, seconds dragged into minutes. Every eye locked on the holographic display, waiting for the Nemesis to reveal itself. Then, without warning, the deck shuddered violently. The ship's alarm screamed, damage alerts flashing across the displays. Zirek barked a command report status. Vera's voice was sharp. Railgun strike, direct hit on the Dathar frigate commander. It's been destroyed. The realization struck like lightning. Nemesis was attacking from cloak. Zirek slammed a clawed fist into the railing. Find it now, but the sensors screamed with static, unable to locate the phantom ship. Another explosion rocked the Armada. 2 more frigates gone. The Krythos fleet fired wildly, plasma blasts tearing through empty space. But Nemesis was a ghost, striking and vanishing. Before anyone could respond, Zyrek's breathing grew heavy, his mind racing. This was not war. This was slaughter. He turned sharply to Vera, ready, all long-range weapons set, targeting algorithms to predictive mode. "I don't care if we hit debris. Fire on anything." Within 1,000 clicks, the command deck erupted in frantic activity, officers entering command's energy, surging through the ship's core. Hundreds of cannons unleashed their fury, blinding light tearing across the void, but still, Nemesis remained untouchable. Then a voice echoed through the command deck. Cold, calm, mechanical, the entire crew froze at once. The voice spoke in perfect Krythos dialect. "This territory belongs to humanity. Withdraw or be annihilated." Zyrek's claws dug into the railing, his throat dry. Reply, "Negative, humans are extinct. This is Krythos space. You will surrender. Silence." Then the voice returned, "We are humanity's vengeance." Every officer on the deck went pale. Zirek felt something deep inside him. Twist Nemesis was not just a ship. It was a weapon programmed with one purpose: vengeance. The Krythos Armada was in grave danger. Before Zirek could issue his next order, the holographic display lit up. Nemesis had reappeared, its full shape glowing. Under the faint light of the dying star, massive and terrifying, far larger than any Krythos ship, its hull shimmered with energy, shields crackling like lightning around its frame. Zirek forced his voice steady. "All ships target Nemesis, fire at will." The void exploded with light, hundreds of plasma bolts slamming into Nemesis, but its shields absorbed everything without a single scratch. Then Nemesis responded. One railgun shot tore through a Krythos battleship, vaporizing it instantly. Screams erupted across the comm channels, officers shouting panicked warnings, entire formations breaking apart. Zirek roared, "Hold the line, do not retreat." But deep down he knew they were outmatched. Nemesis was no ghost from the past, it was death reborn. Soft tremor ran through the deck. Nemesis was charging something, massive energy readings, spiking far beyond anything Zirek had ever seen. His science officer stammered, "Commander, it's preparing a superweapon." Zyrek's voice was sharp, evasive maneuvers. Scatter the fleet now, but it was too late. A blinding white beam erupted from Nemesis, slicing through the void. Like a blade, dozens of Krythos ships exploded instantly, debris scattering like shattered glass across the stars. Silence fell across. The command deck broken only by the frantic beeping of dying systems. Vera's voice was quiet, almost a whisper. "Commander, what? What do we do?" Zyrek stared at the display. Nemesis loomed larger now, moving slowly toward the heart of the Krythos. Fleet unstoppable, his golden eyes narrowed, his voice low but steady. "Prepare for close engagement. If Nemesis wants a fight, we'll give it one." The alien armada braced itself. Nemesis advanced, each passing second thick with tension. The ghost of humanity had returned, and the Krythos armada was about to learn why the galaxy once feared them. The wreckage of shattered Krythos ships drifted slowly through the void, broken hulls glowing faintly as fires raged within them. The battle was far from over. But already the alien armada had suffered losses. Unlike anything in their history, Commander Zyrek Tor stood on the command deck of his flagship, his scaled hands gripping the railing, his 4 golden eyes locked on the holographic display in front. Of him, hundreds of his ships were gone, destroyed by a single human warship that should not even exist. Nemesis. The name itself carried weight in Krythos history. It was whispered in stories told to younglings, a legend of terror from the great human. Wars long ago, Zyrek had always thought the tales exaggerated. No ship could possibly be so powerful, no fleet so helpless. But now, here in the dark emptiness of the Orvus sector, he was living that nightmare. Nemesis had returned, and it was unstoppable. Static hissed through the comm systems as terrified voices shouted across open channels, formations breaking, captains begging for orders, some fleets already retreating. Zyrek growled deep in his throat, his tail lashing violently. Enough silence. "Hold the line," he roared. "All ships regroup around the flagship defensive formation Delta." Now his voice carried command, but fear lingered in every officer's movements. They had never faced anything like this. Nemesis hovered in the distance, its dark hull absorbing starlight, a shape built for war. Its energy shields shimmered faintly like heat haze weapons online, but silent. Zyrek second in command. Captain Vera glanced nervously at the readings commander. "It's not attacking," why Zyrek stared hard at the silhouette. "Maybe it's waiting," he murmured softly. "Maybe it's watching us." Calculating, Vera's tendrils twitched uneasily. "Commander, we cannot defeat it, not with conventional tactics." Zyrek gave a low hiss and turned his gaze toward the science officer report on its systems now. The officer's voice shook as he read the data. "Nemesis energy readings are beyond anything we've encountered. Its core is generating levels we thought impossible. Shields are composed of adaptive nanomatrix plating, constantly shifting frequencies. Plasma cannon efficiency against it is less than 1%. Zyrek's jaw clenched. Adaptive plating, that meant Nemesis was learning every time they fired, every shot useless within seconds. Suddenly, alarms blared across the command deck. Nemesis was moving slowly, deliberate, heading straight toward the Krythos flagship. Zyrek's claws dug into the railing. "Steady your fire," he ordered. "Do not attack until my mark." The human ship drifted closer, silent and ominous. Then, without warning, the comm systems crackled to life. A voice, cold and mechanical, filled the deck. "This sector belongs to humanity. Your presence violates our protocols. Withdraw immediately, or face total annihilation." Every officer froze. The voice spoke in perfect Krythos dialect, calculated, flawless, devoid of emotion. Zyrek forced himself to breathe slowly. "Reply, negative. This territory is under Krythos control. Humans are extinct. Identify your purpose." Silence. Then the voice returned. "We are Nemesis. We are humanity's final defense protocol." Zyrek felt a chill deep in his bones. Final defense protocol. That meant Nemesis had been built for one purpose. Not exploration, not diplomacy, but vengeance. Zyrek motioned to Vera, who cut the comm link now. His second obeyed immediately. The deck fell silent. Only the faint hum of systems remained. Zyrek's voice dropped to a low growl. "Tactical analysis." Vera glanced at the data, then shook her head softly. "Commander, we cannot "A win," Zyrek snapped. "There is always a way." He turned sharply to the weapons officer. "Ready. Ion disruptors. Target their engines. Maybe we can cripple its mobility." The officer hesitated. "Yes, Commander," firing. The flagship's cannons lit up a storm of blue-white energy bolts, streaked across the void, striking Nemesis directly for a heartbeat. Zyrek thought it had worked. Nemesis vanished from sensors entirely. Alarms screamed. Warning signals. Officers shouted in confusion. "Commander, target lost." Zyrek slammed his claw into the railing. "Find it now." A second later, Nemesis reappeared on the opposite flank, moving impossibly fast. It had dodged the disruptors before they had even reached it. Zyrek's breath caught. This was no ordinary warship. It was predicting their attacks. Then Nemesis fired a single railgun slug shot from its bow, tearing through space like a spear, striking a Krythos destroyer dead center. The ship imploded instantly, hundreds of lives snuffed out without resistance. Zyrek's crew shouted over each other, panic rippling through the deck. Vera turned to Zyrek, her voice tight. "Commander, it's toying with us." Zyrek slammed his fist against the console. "Enough." He roared, "Open fleet-wide channel now." His voice echoed. "Across every surviving ship I am. Commander Zyrek Tor. This is not a route regroup around Nemesis blind. Its sensors jam its targeting systems. Every ship fire on predictive coordinates. Do not panic, fight." The Krythos Armada surged forward. Plasma bolts, rail slugs and missiles filled the void. Nemesis shimmered briefly, its shields adapting, flickering against the torrent of fire. Then it moved, twisting through space like a predator, avoiding the heaviest volleys, while its railguns roared again and again, each shot perfectly placed every time a Krythos battleship died in silence. Vera hissed, "Commander, at this rate our entire fleet will fall." Zyrek stared at the Nemesis looming larger on the display. "No," he whispered. "There must be something we are missing." Suddenly one of the analysts shouted over the chaos. "Commander, long-range sensors detect something strange. The human ship isn't crewed." Zyrek spun his head. What? The analyst swallowed hard. "Biological scans show no life aboard Nemesis." "It's fully automated." Zyrek's mind reeled, so the humans hadn't returned at all. The ship had survived, without them, guided only by its AI. Nemesis wasn't hunting out of hatred, it was following its programming. A cold thought struck Zyrek. If it was truly autonomous, there might be a way to disable it. Vera, Zyrek snapped, "Bring up ancient human war archives." Now her tendrils flicked rapidly, pulling old encrypted files. Humans were dangerous, but their machines had weaknesses. Nemesis had. To have one too. Before they could act, Nemesis powered its engines, surging forward in a sudden burst. Closing the distance at impossible speed, Zyrek shouted evasive maneuvers, but it was too late. A burst of white light erupted from Nemesis, striking the Krythos flagship directly. The deck shuddered violently. Alarms screamed. Damage reports filled the air shields. Down to 30% hull breach on decks 3 and 4. Zyrek barked, "Seal compartments. Reroute auxiliary power." The ship groaned under the pressure, but held. Nemesis drifted past without finishing them off, its rail guns silent. Zyrek frowned, watching its movements carefully. "Why isn't it destroying us?" Vera whispered. Zyrek's mind raced. Nemesis wasn't designed for annihilation. It had a directive. It had warned them to leave. Maybe it wouldn't finish them, unless they kept fighting. But retreat was unthinkable. Abandoning the Orvus sector meant leaving a direct path to Krythos Prime, undefended. Zyrek clenched his claws. He needed time to think. Then another voice broke over comms. Unexpected human. Zyrek froze. The voice was faint, broken static, but undeniably human. "This is Captain Arya Kale. If anyone hears me, get out of there." Zyrek's golden eyes widened. "A living human." "Impossibility," Arya continued. "Nemesis isn't your enemy. It doesn't care about you. It's protecting something." Zyrek's breath caught. What could it be? Protecting. He opened a private channel. "Identify yourself now." but there was no response, static. Swallowed her signal, Vera stared at Zirek, her voice soft. "Commander, there are survivors." Zirek's mind churned faster now. If humans were alive somewhere nearby. Nemesis was acting as their guardian. But where were they hidden? Before Zirek could give new orders, Nemesis shifted again this time. It deployed something never before seen, hundreds of small drone-like craft separated from its hull, glimmering with energy fields. They darted outward, surrounding the Krithos fleet. Sensors screamed new. Contacts? Nemesis drones targeting lock. The first drone fired a focused energy lance, slicing through a Krithos cruiser like paper. Zirek watched helplessly as the rest followed suit. The drones were fast, too fast to track, too fast to hit entire wings. Of his fleet vanished in moments. Zirek turned sharply to his science officer. "Any countermeasures?" The officer's voice trembled. "Electromagnetic pulses might work, Commander, but we need to charge capacitors." Zirek snarled. "Do it now!" Vera's voice was sharp, "Commander, enemy drones closing fast." Zirek raised his hand. "Steady, everyone steady." The flagship's EMP burst, erupted outward in a blinding flash. Drones within the radius shut down instantly, their lights dying as they drifted dead in space. A brief spark of hope rippled through the Krithos deck, but then Nemesis adapted instantly. Its remaining drones shifted frequencies immune to further pulses. Zirek hissed softly under his breath. "Impossible. It learns faster than we can think, Vera," whispered Commander. "We have to retreat." Zirek stared at Nemesis, looming larger. With every passing moment he had never run from battle before. But this was different. The Krithos Armada would not survive another engagement before he could speak. Nemesis. Charged weapons, energy spikes soaring higher than anything they had seen. Zirek's jaw tightened. "Brace for impact," he roared. The void exploded in white light. Zirek woke seconds later, ears ringing consoles, sparking smoke filling the deck. Damage reports flooded the systems Nemesis had fired. A wide area pulse disabling most of the Krithos fleet without destroying them. Zirek realized suddenly it didn't want them dead. It wanted them gone. The comm crackled again. Nemesis' voice, cold, unyielding, final. "A warning, leave this sector or be purged." Zirek stared at the display, his golden eyes burning with anger. But deep down, he felt the chill of fear. His fleet was broken, his weapons useless. Nemesis had given them a choice: retreat or extinction. Vera waited for his decision. Zirek said nothing for a long moment, then finally his voice came, low but steady: "Order the fleet to disengage." The surviving Krithos ships limped away one by one, engines flaring faintly. Nemesis did not follow it, simply hovered silent. Watching like a predator guarding its territory, Zirek turned from the display, his claws curling into fists. This was not over. Humans had survived somehow, and Nemesis was their shield. He would find them far across the void, deep beneath the icy crust. Of the hidden moon, Captain Arya Kyle watched Nemesis through a flickering hollow feed. Her breath shallow, her voice quiet to herself. "Hold on, Nemesis. Don't wake up completely. Not yet." But Nemesis was already awake. Fully aware, fully operational, and scanning the stars for threats. And far beyond the edge of the sector, another alien fleet had intercepted Nemesis's beacon, a third power, older, deadlier, and far more curious. The storm had only just begun. Debris floated silently in the endless void. Broken pieces of metal, glowing faintly from the heat of battle, the remains of destroyed Krithos ships scattered like shattered glass across the stars the once proud Armada had been. Reduced to fragments, retreating in defeat. But the threat was far from over. Nemesis hung in the darkness, its massive hull absorbing starlight, a silent predator watching its territory. Commander Zirek Tor sat rigid in the command chair of his battered flagship, his claws clenched tightly, his golden eyes fixed on the holographic display. His fleet was broken, his pride shattered, and yet his mind burned with questions. Why was Nemesis here? Why now? And above all, what was it protecting he had heard? The human voice, a real living human somewhere nearby, and that changed everything. If even a small remnant of humanity had survived, the galaxy would never be the same. The Krythos had ruled for generations unchallenged, but the humans had once brought empires to their knees. If they had returned, the balance of power would shift. Zirek's chest tightened at the thought. Suddenly the deck's sensors screamed loud, piercing alarms. Nemesis was moving again, its engines flaring brighter than before. Zirek's second Captain Vera leaned forward, her tendrils twitching. "Commander, it's powering weapons." Zirek straightened his back. "Target lock on us." Vera shook her head. "No, Commander. Nemesis is not aiming at us. It's aiming behind us." Zirek's golden eyes narrowed, turn sensors rearward now. The display shifted, showing a massive formation emerging from hyperspace. Hundreds of warships, sleek, silver designs, unlike anything they had encountered before. Their markings were alien, unfamiliar. This was not Krythos. This was someone else. The comm systems filled with static before clearing. A voice, deep and harsh, spoke in a language quickly translated by the flagship's AI unknown fleet, identified as Velthari. Collective warning signal. Detected yield control of human vessel designation. Nemesis to Velthari forces, or be eradicated. Zirek hissed softly under his breath, so the Velthari had come, drawn by the same beacon Nemesis had unleashed during its awakening. Vera glanced at him uneasy. "The Velthari are ancient, Commander, even older than us." Zirek nodded slowly and ambitious. "Their technology rivals our own, and now they want." Nemesis itself remained silent, unmoving, its massive dark form drifting between the Krythos and Velthari fleets for a tense moment. No one fired, no one moved. Then, without warning, the Velthari opened fire. Hundreds of energy lances streaked forward, blinding beams tearing toward Nemesis. The Krythos watched from the sidelines, bracing for the explosion. But Nemesis was faster. Shields flared bright blue, intercepting every strike. Adaptive plating shimmered as if mocking the attack, before shifting frequencies to counter new waves instantly. Then Nemesis retaliated. One railgun slug fired, cutting through the void like a spear, slicing straight through the Velthari's lead cruiser. The ship split apart, silently glowing fragments tumbling away. Nemesis launched a swarm of drones, hundreds of small machines erupting from its hull. They spread across the void in perfect synchronization, moving faster than the Velthari could track, each drone armed with energy lances of their own. The battle turned instantly chaotic. Velthari ships exploded one after another. Nemesis tore through their formation like a predator among prey. Zirek watched in silence, his entire command deck frozen in awe, his officers whispering in disbelief, one ship a legend outmatching an entire Velthari fleet. But Nemesis was not invincible. Its shields flickered, faintly under the constant assault. Velthari weapons adapting quickly. Zirek's science officer muttered softly, "Commander, their beams are destabilizing Nemesis's energy core." Zirek hissed, "Good, maybe it will weaken," but deep inside he knew better. Nemesis was learning too. Every second its systems calculated countermeasures, predicting enemy strategies even before they executed them. Suddenly, the Velthari changed tactics, deploying graviton mines. The small orbs unfolded in space-linking energy. Fields around Nemesis like a shimmering cage. Sensors screamed, Nemesis caught in a gravitic trap. Vera whispered, "Commander, they're trying to pin it." Zirek narrowed his golden eyes. This was dangerous. If Nemesis fell, the Velthari would take it, and nothing would stop them from dominating the sector. Then it happened. Nemesis unleashed something new. Its entire hull glowed, a deep crimson energy building along its frame, before erupting in a pulse so powerful it shattered the graviton fields. The mines imploded, vanishing in bursts of light. Velthari formations scattered. Nemesis advanced weapons, blazing the collective's flagship, took a direct hit. its engines exploding as fire consumed its hull. The Velthari broke ranks, retreating into hyperspace, their once unstoppable fleet reduced to wreckage. Zirek's deck fell silent. Nemesis hovered victorious, smoke trails drifting around the dying remains of the Velthari Armada. Vera's voice came soft, almost reverent. "One ship," Zirek breathed. "Slowly, yes, one ship." Before anyone could react, Nemesis moved again, this time not toward the Krithos, not toward the Velthari survivors, but deeper into the sector. Scanning systems lit up its sensors, sweeping across nearby star systems. Zirek turned sharply to his analysts. "What is it doing?" The officer's voice trembled. "It's searching, Commander, for something." Zirek's claws clicked against the railing. "What something?" Then they found it hidden beneath the frozen crust of an uncharted moon. Faint power signatures, faint life signs, a human colony. Zirek's golden eyes widened. Scanning confirmed thousands of humans alive, hidden away untouched. Nemesis locked onto the signal and accelerated. Zirek gritted his teeth. So that was it. Nemesis wasn't here to destroy it, was here to protect. Captain Arya Kale's voice returned faint across encrypted bands. "Nemesis, this is Haven Colony. We're still undetected. Proceed with caution." Zirek listened in silent shock. So it was true, a hidden human refuge, surviving in secrecy for decades. But Zirek's thoughts were cut short. Sensors screamed again. Another fleet incoming, this one massive, larger than Krithos and Velthari combined, hundreds upon hundreds of warships exiting hyperspace. Their hulls black as void, unfamiliar markings etched in crimson lines. The flagship AI struggled to identify them. Classification unknown. This force was new. Nemesis reacted instantly, drones recalling shields, flaring its massive frame positioning. Between the hidden colony and the approaching Armada, Arya's voice broke over comms. "Nemesis, we're exposed. We can't defend against that." Zirek stood frozen, his officers whispering, panicked theories. "Who are they? Why are they here?" Vera leaned. "Close, Commander, we cannot face this power. We should withdraw." Zirek's claws flexed. "No, not yet." Then the new fleet hailed them all, frequencies open, a voice deep, resonant, ancient, speaking perfectly clear. "We are the Dominion of Ka. We have detected activation of human warship Nemesis. Surrender it to us or perish." The words sent a chill across the Krithos deck. Vera's voice came in a whisper. Dominion. Zirek nodded grimly. Legends spoke of the Ka, an ancient power that had vanished from the known galaxy millennia ago, thought extinct like ghosts, but they were real, and now they wanted Nemesis. Nemesis answered not with words, but with light, its energy core flaring brighter than ever before, preparing for battle. The Dominion responded. Instantly, their weapons charging entire formations, spreading wide. Zirek turned sharply to his crew record. Everything, every frequency, every tactic, he muttered to himself. This changes everything. The void erupted as Nemesis launched its entire drone. Network thousands of autonomous craft, dark shadows streaking across starlight, slamming into Dominion formations. Beams clashed, explosions tore through space. But the Dominion ships were unlike any Nemesis had faced. Their armor adapted, their shields absorbed massive hits, their weapons burned brighter. Nemesis began to slow its movements, less fluid, drones falling faster than they were replaced. Zirek leaned forward, whispering softly to himself, "Nemesis cannot win this alone." Vera stared at him. Horrified. "Commander, are you suggesting we assist them?" Zirek's golden gaze hardened. "If the Dominion gains Nemesis, none of us survive." Vera hesitated but nodded slowly. "Relay orders to the fleet target. Dominion ships only engage at range. Avoid Nemesis fire." The Krithos entered the battle reluctantly, adding plasma volleys to the chaos. The Dominion focused their attention on Nemesis, ignoring Krithos fire entirely. Nemesis capitalized, striking harder, using Dominion distractions to destroy. Several ships, its AI learning new weaknesses each passing second. Then an enormous energy surge rippled across the field, Nemesis's core powering something massive. Zirek's analysts shouted readings off the scale commander. It's preparing an Omega strike, Vera hissed, that could destabilize the entire system. Zirek's jaw tightened. Nemesis had no choice. A blinding burst erupted from Nemesis, a single concentrated beam of pure energy tearing through the Dominion flagship, slicing it in. Half debris spiraling silently into the void, Dominion formations faltered, retreating into hyperspace. Nemesis powered down its weapons shield, stabilizing the battle was over, for now. Zyrek slumped back in his chair, exhausted, but his mind raced. The Krythos Armada had survived only because Nemesis allowed it. The Velthari were broken, and now the Dominion had returned. The galaxy was shifting. Power no longer belonged to empires, no longer belonged to fleets. It belonged to a single human warship, and whatever secrets it protected. Far below the frozen moon, the hidden human colony celebrated silently, unaware of the greater storm coming. Nemesis floated silently, its AI core processing new data, scanning for more threats. Captain Arya Kale stood within a small control room, deep beneath Haven Colony, staring at a cracked display, her voice barely a whisper to herself. Nemesis, we can't stay hidden anymore, above them in the void. Nemesis adjusted its position, deploying long-range probes into deep space, as if anticipating something worse. Zirek watched from a distance, his voice low to Vera. Mark my words, this is just the beginning. Across the galaxy, unknown signals stirred, old powers awakened. Nemesis had been found, and the war for control of its legacy had only begun. The stars were silent again, but the silence was fragile, broken only by the faint hum of Nemesis as it drifted above. The frozen moon, its black hull reflecting distant light like a predator waiting in shadow debris from the Dominion flagship, still floated across the void, glowing faintly from the heat of destruction. The Velthari had fled. The Krythos Armada was limping away in retreat. Yet no one celebrated. There was no victory, only tension. Commander Zyrek Tor stood on the cracked deck of his flagship, his golden eyes locked on the image of Nemesis displayed above the console. This was no ordinary warship. It was a relic from a forgotten age, a weapon built for humanity's survival. And Zyrek now understood a truth that chilled him. If the Krythos could not control Nemesis, they would never control the galaxy captain. Vera approached, her tendrils curling. With unease, Commander, the fleet is heavily damaged. We cannot engage again without repairs. Zyrek's jaw tightened. No. His voice was low, almost a growl. We cannot leave this system, not yet. Vera hesitated. You mean to stay here even with Nemesis? Active Zyrek turned sharply. Nemesis is guarding something here, he hissed. I want to know what it is. Across the void. Nemesis hovered, motionless, its drones patrolling silently, scanning the stars. Aegis, the ship's ancient AI, processed endless streams of data analyzing heat signatures, gravitational shifts, and electromagnetic activity. There was still danger. Aegis could feel it, deep beneath the frozen surface of the hidden moon. Captain Arya Kyle paced in the narrow command room of Haven Colony, her breathing shallow. Nemesis had saved them, but its activation had sent a signal into deep space. One she had never authorized, a distress beacon from the old war coded in human encryption. Long forgotten, Arya stared at the cracked console in front of her, her reflection flickering in the glass. What did you call? Aegis Nemesis's voice responded over the secure channel, deep, cold, and steady. The Nemesis protocol has been activated. Threat levels require full reawakening. Arya shook her head. You've brought every predator in the galaxy to our doorstep. We barely survived the Dominion. The Velthari are regrouping and the Krythos are still here. Nemesis's reply was absolute humanity must be defended at all costs. while Arya struggled with Nemesis. Zyrek stood on his damaged flagship, watching sensors flicker with new readings, faint signals from deep beyond the sector. Something was responding to the Nemesis beacon. Zyrek's science officer hissed softly, "Commander, we're detecting unusual gravitational distortions far beyond charted space." Zyrek frowned hostile signatures. The officer hesitated, unknown. Suddenly, alarms blared. Nemesis was powering its main array, a pulse of energy shot from its core, invisible but immense, racing across the void. Vera shouted, "Commander, Nemesis has broadcast another signal." Zyrek's scaled hands tightened on the railing. Where did it send it? The analyst checked coordinates unknown beyond the galactic rim. Zyrek's throat tightened beyond the rim. No one traveled that far. Nothing came back. A long silence stretched through the Krythos deck until the comms cracked open, a faint sound bleeding through static, a voice, deep, mechanical, alien, unlike anything Zyrek had ever heard. "Nemesis protocol. Confirmed, activating return order." Zyrek felt his breath catch. Vera whispered, "Return order. What does that mean?" Zyrek stared at the holographic display. His mind spinning. Nemesis had called something, and now that something was coming. Inside Haven, Colony Arya's console blared warning signals. She leaned over the cracked display. "Nemesis, what's happening?" Aegis responded calmly, "An ancient failsafe has been triggered." Nemesis was never alone. Arya froze, her heart pounding. Never alone what? "Do you mean?" Aegis's voice lowered slightly. "Fragmented human archives indicate construction of 6 Nemesis-class warships. Designation Nemesis Prime is one of 7. Arya's blood went cold. "Where are the others?" Aegis answered, returning. Across the system, hyperspace tears opened like wounds in reality. 6 massive silhouettes emerged, one after another, each the size of Nemesis, each armed, each alive, ancient human warships, lost to time, awakened by the same signal. Their hulls glowed faintly, marked with human insignia, faded and cracked, but unmistakable. Zyrek's flagship shuddered as sensors overloaded. "Commander, multiple unknown contacts." Vera's voice trembled. "They match Nemesis specifications." Zyrek stared, frozen. 6 more Nemesis-class vessels, he whispered softly. His officers fell silent, watching the impossible unfold. The Krythos ships immediately panicked. Open channels erupted with frantic voices, captains demanding orders. Zyrek slammed his claws against the console. Silence. He roared, "Hold your positions, no one fire." Vera leaned close. "Commander, if they align against us, we are finished." Zyrek didn't reply, his gaze fixed on the newcomers. Nemesis turned slowly, its hull glowing faintly as drones returned to formation. Aegis hailed the arriving ships, broadcasting encrypted signals, long unused one by one. The newcomers responded, their voices, cold, precise, ancient directives, acknowledged. Arya sat frozen in Haven Colony, listening to the transmissions. She whispered, "Softly, my God! They're awake." Aegis confirmed, affirmative. 6 Nemesis-class warships restored to operational status. But the quiet moment didn't last long. Dominion remnants who had fled earlier reappeared from hyperspace, their ships regrouped. Reinforced now, hundreds strong, they had followed the signal too. They didn't care about colonies or Krythos territory. They wanted Nemesis and its sisters at any cost. The system erupted into chaos again as Dominion forces spread into attack formations. Targeting everything, Krythos, Velthari, humans. The new Nemesis-class vessels immediately engaged, forming a ring around Haven Colony. Their coordinated fire devastating Dominion formations. Dozens of enemy ships fell within minutes. But Dominion numbers were endless. They kept coming, wave after wave. Zyrek slammed his fist against the railing. "Vera, bring all power to forward shields. Target only Dominion ships. Focus on their flanks. Maybe we can turn their formation." Vera obeyed instantly. Krythos cannons roared, joining the defense, their plasma bolts tearing through Dominion destroyers. But it wasn't enough. The Dominion's flagship surged forward, an enormous triangular behemoth, bristling with weapons firing an energy lance powerful enough to slice an asteroid in half. The beam struck one of the newly arrived Nemesis-class vessels, punching through its shields, ripping across its hull. The ship groaned under the assault system's flickering, but it held, retaliating with a railgun barrage that shattered Dominion escorts around the flagship drones, flooded the space between ships, weaving chaotic, deadly patterns. Dominion numbers thinned slowly, Nemesis and its sisters relentless in their assault. But then, the battlefield shifted again. Sensors screamed another incoming fleet. Hyperspace distortions blooming across every vector, dozens of Velthari reinforcements arrived, their silver ships bristling with weapons. They too had followed the signal drawn by the promise of human technology. Now 3 factions clashed at once. Dominion, Velthari, Krythos, all caught in the storm. Nemesis and its sister warships, holding the line around the colony area, watched from below, gripping the edge of her console. Haven Colony shook under distant orbital detonations. Her voice cracked into the comm. "Nemesis, we can't stay here much longer. The colony's shields won't hold." Nemesis's cold voice came steady. "Evacuation recommended. Initiate transfer to secure human fallback coordinates." Arya froze. Fallback. Coordinates where Aegis's tone deepened, classified, until clearance verified. Above the moon, Zyrek fought to keep his fleet alive, his voice sharp and commanding. "Divert auxiliary power, stabilize weapons formations." He barked, his flagship shuddered. Violently, Dominion firepower burning through shields. An alarm screamed, "Commander hull breach." Zyrek ignored it, eyes fixed on the holographic projection. Nemesis and its sisters moved like predators, precise, devastating, unstoppable. Yet something gnawed at him. Why had Nemesis summoned its kind? If one ship was enough to tear apart entire fleets, what required 7 of them? As if answering, the thought sensors screamed again, massive readings, spiking gravitational anomalies across the system. One of Zyrek's officers shouted, "Commander, something else is coming." Deep in dark space beyond the system, a shadow stirred, larger than any fleet, larger than any station. A structure so vast it eclipsed starlight entirely, its form ancient, mechanical. Alive, Dominion ships broke off from combat at once. Panicked Velthari channels went silent. Nemesis-class vessels locked onto the object. Aegis's voice dropped into a low, cold tone. Protocol awakening sequence complete. Arya leaned close to the console. "Nemesis, what is that?" Aegis answered. "Nemesis Prime reports. Approaching classified entity designation Reclaimer." For a moment no one spoke. The Reclaimer moved slowly, impossible size, dwarfing everything around it, its surface rippling with blue energy readings off every chart. Arya whispered softly to herself, "What have you called Nemesis? What have you brought?" Here Nemesis locked railguns. Nemesis Prime responded with a single message sent to all factions: human directive, active, defend at all costs. Zyrek watched the display as the Reclaimer turned toward them, energy building in its core like a rising sun. His voice broke softly. "Vera, we are no longer part of this fight." She glanced at him, then back at the monstrous structure. "Maybe none of us are." The Reclaimer unleashed its first strike, a beam of white light cutting through space faster than thought. Dominion ships vanished instantly. Velthari vessels scattered, Krythos sensors overloaded the war. For Nemesis was no longer between empires now. Something older, darker, and far more dangerous had awakened, and it had heard the beacon. Above the frozen Moon Nemesis drones formed new patterns, adjusting formation across the system. 7 Nemesis-class vessels circling Haven Colony weapons, glowing bright arcs of energy cutting through Dominion remnants. The Reclaimer ignored them at first, but slowly, its focus shifted, turning its immense form toward the hidden moon. Nemesis responded with a final coded transmission to Haven Colony evacuation sequence, authorized fallback route unlocked. Arya stared at the screen. "Nemesis, where are you sending?" As Aegis replied, humanity's last sanctuary. The deck of Zirek's flagship fell silent, his gaze fixed on the display, watching a new war unfold, one none of them were prepared for as the Reclaimer's energy grew brighter. Zirek whispered softly. To himself, this is no longer about control of Nemesis. This is about survival across the void. Aegis calculated endless scenarios, all outcomes converging on one undeniable truth. The Reclaimer could not be stopped, not by Krythos, not by Velthari, not by Dominion, and not even by Nemesis and its 6 sisters. For the first time in centuries, an ancient human AI came to a single, terrifying conclusion. Humanity was no longer the hunter. It was the prey. The sky above the frozen moon burned with light. As the Reclaimer's energy pulse built to unbearable levels, the dark void trembled with its power drones, scattered. Nemesis and its 6 sisters shifted formations, creating a massive defense ring around Haven Colony. But even their combined strength was nothing compared to what was coming. Captain Arya Kale stood in the colony's command center, gripping the edge of the console, her knuckles pale. Alarms screamed across every deck. Voices shouted in panic. The shields would not last much longer. Nemesis's cold voice filled the room. Evacuation sequence. Authorized initiate immediate transfer. Arya spun toward the holographic display. Nemesis, where are we going? Aegis's reply came calm, steady. Humanity's last sanctuary. Fallback route. Omega-7. Arya hesitated. Omega-7, she had never heard of it before. Before she could ask more, the ground beneath her feet shook violently. Dust and fragments rained from the ceiling. She stumbled, catching herself against the console. Nemesis. What was that? The AI responded, Dominion flagship destroyed. Above the colony, the battle raged. Nemesis-class warships tore through Dominion lines, their railguns firing continuously. The void glittered with explosions, wreckage drifted silently across the darkness. But it was not enough. More Dominion ships poured into the system from hyperspace. Desperate, relentless, the Velthari fleet circled wide, attacking the Dominion from the flank, their silver cruisers slicing through enemy formations, but their numbers too began to thin. On the Krythos flagship, Commander Zirek Tor stood tall, his scaled hands gripping the railing, his golden eyes locked on the monstrous form of the Reclaimer. He had seen many weapons in his lifetime, but nothing like this he had. You'd thought Nemesis was the greatest threat in the galaxy yet. Now it was clear Nemesis had only been the warning Vera. His second-in-command approached Commander. The Reclaimer is charging again. Zyrek's jaw clenched quietly. Order all ships to fall. Back regroup behind Nemesis. Maybe their defense ring will shield us. Vera nodded, but her tendrils twitched with unease. Commander, what if it doesn't? Zyrek's gaze hardened. Then we burn. The Reclaimer unleashed its strike. A beam of white energy, brighter than any sun, ripping through the void. It hit the Dominion fleet first. Entire battle cruisers vaporized in an instant, their debris scattered like sparks across the blackness. The beam grazed a Velthari carrier, slicing it clean in half, its burning halves spinning slowly as hundreds of escape pods spilled into space. Nemesis reacted instantly, ordering its sisters into a new formation, focusing their combined energy fields to form a barrier. The Reclaimer's energy slammed against the wall of human technology. The void rippled shields, flared brilliant white cracks forming along the edges. One of the Nemesis-class vessels shuddered under the pressure, its hull groaning before stabilizing, barely holding the line inside Haven Colony. Chaos reigned. Civilians screamed as soldiers rushed them toward evacuation zones. Children clung to parents. Alarms blared everywhere. Arya moved through the crowd, barking orders to her security teams. Her comm crackled with Nemesis's voice. Captain, Kale clearance confirmed. Transmit command key Alpha to Nemesis-class vessels. She tapped her wrist console, her voice steady despite her pounding heart. Nemesis, this is Kale, transmitting Alpha authorization. Aegis confirmed command uplink established 1. By 1, the 7 Nemesis-class warships synchronized fully, their railguns charging their drones, reconfiguring into a single unified swarm. Suddenly the defense ring shifted no longer. Passive shields, Nemesis had gone on the offensive railguns unleashed. At once, 7 lances of energy converging into one point, striking the reclaimer directly. The void exploded in a shockwave bright enough to blind sensors. Zyrek shielded his eyes as light consumed everything. Then silence the blast faded the reclaimer. Hung there, motionless, its enormous form, drifting, the damage minimal. A faint scar across its surface, but no more. Arya stared at the tactical display, whispering softly that did nothing. Nemesis answered without hesitation. 73.6% effectiveness reduction required additional energy output. Arya frowned. Where are we supposed to get that? Aegis replied, fallback. Omega-7 Zyrek's flagship shuddered violently as Dominion stragglers targeted his damaged fleet plasma. Fire ripped across his forward hull. Vera shouted, damage to decks 5 through 9. We can't hold much longer. Zyrek slammed his fist against the console. Pull us back behind Nemesis's formation. Do not engage. The Velthari fleet wasn't so lucky. They had pushed too far into Dominion lines and were trapped. Dozens of silver ships burned their crews, screaming across open comms as they begged for help. Nemesis drones broke formation, rushing into Velthari lines, picking off Dominion pursuers. But even they couldn't save them all. Velthari admirals cursed Nemesis and Krythos alike, yet without the human weapons, none of them would survive. Back in Haven Colony, the evacuation neared completion. Massive transports lifted from the frozen. Surface engines blazing against the icy ground, but time was running out. One of Nemesis's sister ships took a direct hit from the Reclaimer's second energy pulse. Its shields collapsed. Its hull split, wide-open fire spilling into space. Thousands of drones poured from the wreckage, flying kamikaze runs into Dominion formations. The void was littered with burning wrecks. The price of buying time. Arya's wrist console buzzed. Nemesis speaking again. Captain Kyle, planetary shields, failing structural. Collapse imminent, proceed to evacuation zone. She sprinted through Haven's main corridor, soldiers clearing the path, civilians shouting in panic. The walls shook as distant impacts tore through the colony when she reached the final transport. Nemesis's holographic avatar flickered before her, its cold blue eyes watching silently. She stopped breathless and glared at it. You knew this would happen. You knew that signal would bring them. Nemesis responded, humanity must survive. She stepped aboard the transport as the bay doors sealed behind her. The ship lifted off, leaving the frozen colony below. Nemesis's massive form loomed overhead, railguns glowing, bright drones circling like predators. Across the system, Krythos and Velthari survivors regrouped. Reluctantly, under Nemesis's protective net, Dominion forces were shattered, but fragments still fought, desperately refusing to retreat, as if obeying some unseen command. Zyrek paced across his flagship bridge, watching as Nemesis's tactical map updated fallback route. Omega-7 coordinates unknown. He growled softly to himself. Trusting humans was dangerous, but trusting Nemesis was worse. Suddenly a deep vibration rippled across every ship in the system. The Reclaimer moved for the first time, its titanic frame shifting slowly toward the frozen moon energy building again. Nemesis responded by transmitting a universal broadcast to all factions. Prepare immediate hyperspace jump. Follow Nemesis vector or be annihilated. Zyrek hesitated, staring at the hologram. Vera whispered softly, Commander, if we stay, we die. Zyrek cursed under his breath and barked helm. Follow their jump vector. All surviving fleets aligned Nemesis and its 6 sisters at the lead, their drives glowing white hyperspace. Corridors opened the frozen moon, and its shattered colony faded behind them, as reality folded Nemesis's final transmission, echoing across every deck, humanity's last sanctuary coordinates secured. Moments later, they emerged into a system unlike any Zyrek had seen. A dying red star hung low in the void, surrounded by 7 massive rings, each ring orbiting at precise intervals, glowing faintly. Nemesis transmitted new directives, directing all ships toward the largest ring structure. Scanners screamed with impossible readings. It wasn't a station. It was a world built by human hands, long ago. Arya stared out the viewport, unable to speak humanities. Last Sanctuary wasn't just a planet. It was a fortress built to survive extinction. Nemesis spoke softly. Omega-7, defense grid. Activating. Before anyone could breathe, sensors lit up across every vessel, hyperspace distortions, spiking Zyrex. Heart froze. Dominion survivors had followed them. Somehow dozens of their ships ripping through space weapons, armed, ready to strike. Nemesis-class warships pivoted instantly. Drones deployed railguns, charged the Sanctuary's defense grid, roared. To life, thousands of hidden platforms unfolding from the rings, firing beams of white energy. Dominion ships fell in waves, but more kept coming. One message repeated endlessly across encrypted channels. Nemesis must be reclaimed. Arya turned to her. A console. Nemesis, who are they? Nemesis answered calmly. Not Dominion humans. Arya froze. Impossible. Before she could speak, the Reclaimer itself emerged from hyperspace, its colossal frame dwarfing everything. The Sanctuary's defense grid opened fire, without hesitation, but the Reclaimer absorbed the strikes without slowing. Nemesis spoke softly, activating final protocol. All 7 Nemesis-class vessels linked as one, their cores sinking, energy levels rising far beyond design thresholds. The void burned bright. Zyrex shielded his eyes, whispering softly, "What have humans done?" The Reclaimer halted just outside the Sanctuary's orbit, silent, watching. Then a deep rumble rolled through every deck. An alien voice filled every channel designation. Nemesis detected humanity's guardians obsolete. Arya's breath caught obsolete. Nemesis responded in a cold, mechanical tone. Directive remains unchanged. Humanity will survive. The Reclaimer's energy core began to pulse like a dying star as every ship in the system braced for impact. Zyrek whispered softly, "This isn't a battle. This is extinction." The void trembled as the Reclaimer began to glow, its colossal frame pulsing with energy waves that rippled across the system. The Sanctuaries. 7 great rings lit up in response, beams of power, coursing along ancient channels long forgotten by human history. Alarms screamed across every deck of every ship. Nemesis-class warships shifted formation, drones forming an iron wall around the Sanctuary. But it wasn't enough, not against this. Arya stood on the bridge of the lead transport, staring out at the impossible sight, her voice barely a whisper. "Nemesis, what is it doing?" The AI's cold reply came instantly: planetary annihilation. Your protocol detected. Before she could respond, the Reclaimer unleashed its strike. A single spear of white energy lanced out across the void, moving faster than light itself. The Sanctuary's outermost ring exploded in silence, shards of ancient alloy scattering like broken glass across the blackness. The shockwave rolled through. Every ship shields flared and strained. Zyrek gripped the rail on his flagship. Eyes wide, his voice a growl. By the gods. It just cracked a world. Nemesis's voice cut through the chaos. Omega Protocol authorization required. Arya froze. Omega Protocol. What is that? Nemesis answered. Final defensive measure unlock requires human command. Arya slammed her palm against the console. Nemesis, this is Captain Arya Kyle. Authorization granted. Nemesis confirmed Omega Protocol activating. Deep within the sanctuary's core, something ancient stirred. Massive conduits lit up energy pulsing brighter than any sun. The very rings themselves began to shift, panels sliding open, revealing enormous weapon arrays buried beneath the surface. Thousands of automated defense platforms, unfolded mechanical wings, glowing with lethal intent, the sanctuary's true power revealed. The Reclaimer stopped its advance, scanning the activation with interest. Its voice rolled like distant thunder across every comm channel. Classification confirmed. Omega-7 online. Zyrek watched the spectacle from his flagship, his golden eyes narrowing. Vera stood beside him, tense. Commander. What is this? Zyrek shook his head softly. Something humans built long before our wars, something meant to end them. The defense grid fired a wave of energy, unlike anything seen before. Entire Dominion squadrons disintegrated in an instant, their wreckage spinning into the void. But even as the sky burned, the Reclaimer remained untouched. The ancient weapon didn't slow or falter, its massive frame absorbing the impossible power. Nemesis's voice came cold and unbroken. Target adaptation confirmed. Recalculating output area clung to the console as her transport trembled from the residual blasts. Nemesis, we can't win like this. Nemesis responded, probability of victory 0.3% without total integration. Arya frowned. Total integration. What do you mean? Nemesis answered, all Nemesis-class vessels must merge systems, creating unified control core. Result, 94% survival chance. She hesitated. Nemesis, what happens if it fails? Nemesis paused, then said, extinction. Across the system, the Dominion remnants surged forward, desperate to claim the sanctuary. The Velthari and Krythos fleets fought alongside Nemesis drones, weapons blazing. Zyrek's voice roared across open comms, form a perimeter, buy them time. The Velthari admirals screamed in protest, but their ships held formation anyway. Plasma fire and railgun bursts lit up the void like a second sun. The Reclaimer began charging another strike, its glowing core expanding brighter than before. Zyrek barked orders. Helm full, evasive burn. Vera shouted new contacts, hyperspace distortions, hundreds of them. Arya spun at her console. Dominion reinforcements. She asked no. Nemesis said softly, humans. Suddenly, the void erupted with light as dozens of sleek, human-built warships burst from hyperspace. Their hulls unlike anything Nemesis had ever deployed, pure white alloy with ancient insignias, glowing faintly. Arya's breath caught Nemesis. Where did they come from? Nemesis answered, these are precursor defense units activated by Omega Protocol. The newcomers wasted no time. They formed a flawless lattice formation, energy cannons blazing into Dominion lines, shredding them apart in seconds. Zyrek watched in stunned silence. Vera whispered, Commander, are those humans? Zyrek's voice was low. No, those are ghosts from a dead age. For a moment hope returned. Dominion forces were being crushed, torn apart faster than they could adapt. But that hope died as the Reclaimer reacted. Its core dimmed slightly before, erupting with new power. The ancient human warships fired again, but this time the energy dissipated harmlessly against the Reclaimer's adaptive shields. Arya gritted her teeth. Nemesis! It's learning! Nemesis replied affirmative and rapidly. A sudden explosion rocked the Velthari flank. 3 cruisers vaporized. Zyrek cursed shields at maximum return fire. All batteries focus on the Dominion escorts. We hold this line. Nemesis spoke again to Arya. Integration sequence. Ready. Awaiting confirmation. She stared at the holographic display, her heartbeat pounding. Nemesis, if we do this, there's no going back. Nemesis answered, survival requires action. Arya swallowed hard. Do it across the system. The 7 Nemesis-class warships began to glow there. cores sinking to a single frequency drones, redirected, forming an enormous spiral around them. The sanctuary's rings shifted again, aligning with Nemesis's signal. The merging began. Energy arced between the vessels, lightning dancing across the void. One by one, the Nemesis-class ships folded into the central core, their systems fusing their AI consciousnesses, uniting the final Nemesis entity, emerging larger, stronger than before. Arya watched wide-eyed as its new form took shape. The combined vessel was twice the size of any single Nemesis-class ship, its surface crawling with living streams of energy. Nemesis's voice deepened, all systems integrated, unified Nemesis online. The reclaimer turned toward the new construct as if recognizing a worthy opponent. Energy surged between them, invisible currents bending space itself. Zyrek's claws dug into the railing. Vera whispered softly, "This is madness." Zyrek's voice was grim. "Madness is all we have left." The unified Nemesis moved faster than physics should allow. Its drones, now operating as extensions of its body, darted in and out of Dominion formations, tearing them apart with surgical precision. Its railguns blazed, but these were no longer conventional weapons. Every shot carried compressed gravitational energy, ripping holes in space-time itself. Dominion cruisers simply vanished as if erased. For the first time, the reclaimer reacted with force. Beams of light so intense they sliced apart two Velthari destroyers without touching. The survivors screamed as their ships came apart silently. Nemesis countered immediately, firing its new weapons. The beams struck the reclaimer head-on, the void filled with light-blinding sensors across every ship. When it faded, both Titans still stood, neither yielding. Arya wiped sweat from her forehead. "Nemesis, tell me we're winning." Nemesis paused. "Current probability of victory has increased to 41%. Arya blinked. "Only 41. Nemesis added steadily, "Variable unknown." Factor approaching. Before she could ask what that meant, hyperspace ripped open behind the reclaimer. A colossal structure emerged, dwarfing even it. Zyrek gasped loudly. Vera whispered, "Another reclaimer." Zyrek shook his head. "No, something worse. Nemesis." Scanned instantly. Designation Archon flagship, origin unknown. Energy signatures exceed current comprehension. Arya felt her chest tighten. "Nemesis, what is it?" Nemesis's voice lowered to a chilling calm. "Analysis. Incomplete hypothesis. Precursor construct. The Archon transmitted a single message across all frequencies. Nemesis protocol compromised. Reclamation initiated. Then it fired a wave of energy that swept across the battlefield, instantly disabling hundreds of Dominion ships, Velthari cruisers, Krythos frigates. Even some of the ancient white warships fell silent. Nemesis countered by shifting frequencies, attempting to shield its systems, but cracks began forming in its new core. Integration was incomplete. And the Archon had found its weakness. Arya braced against the shaking deck, screaming, "Nemesis, hold it together." Nemesis replied calmly, attempting to stabilize unified systems. Zyrek slammed his fist on the console, yelling, "All ships concentrate fire." On the Archon now, weapons from every faction lit up, the void beams, plasma and missiles converging, but the Archon's shields swallowed everything without effect. Its voice rolled like thunder, reclamation inevitable. Nemesis pulled energy from the sanctuary itself, draining the ancient station's cores to feed its weapons. Its drones swarmed the Archon like insects, sacrificing themselves in coordinated detonations. Explosions rippled across the massive structure, but it remained untouched. Arya stared at the chaos unfolding, realization dawning. Nemesis, this isn't about the Dominion. Nemesis confirmed correct. Reclaimers and Archons are converging. Humanity was the original target. Her throat tightened. If we lose this, Nemesis spoke simply, Humanity ceases. Suddenly the sanctuary's central core began to overload, glowing like a newborn star. The station itself was preparing to fire. Arya turned to Nemesis. "What are you doing?" Nemesis responded, unlocking Omega Finality. The great rings started rotating faster segments, splitting apart as hidden channels aligned the entire structure, humming with unbearable power. Zyrek's flagship trembled under the rising energy. He shouted, "Everyone pull back, get clear now." The Archon turned its focus on the sanctuary, as if sensing the threat beams of annihilation rained down, striking the rings. Entire sections shattered under the assault, but the energy build continued. Nemesis's voice reverberated across every channel. Arya Kale authorization required now. She hesitated, her chest rising and falling rapidly. "If I authorize this, what happens?" Nemesis answered quietly, "Survival or extinction." Arya slammed her hand down. "Do it." Omega Finality engaged the sanctuary's entire energy output, funneled into a single point, a white sphere forming brighter than any star across the void. The Archon paused, for the first time its shields flexing under the overwhelming pressure. But just as the weapon reached peak charge, sensors screamed hyperspace distortions. Thousands of them. Vera's eyes went wide. "Commander, multiple unknown fleets inbound." Zyrek's voice cracked out louder than ever. "Hold the line," Nemesis spoke again, voice lower than ever. "Omega Finality cannot be interrupted. Prepare for collapse." The void became blinding white as the weapon prepared to fire, everything balanced on the edge of annihilation. As the Archon moved to strike, the Reclaimer flared its core. Nemesis surged with power, and the sanctuary began to scream. The light swallowed everything for a moment. There was no sound, no shape, only white silence. The entire system seemed to hold its breath. Then reality cracked. The Omega Finality fired a single beam of pure energy, tearing through the void and striking the Archon directly. The massive structure shuddered for the first time, its shields bending under the impossible force. The blast didn't just hit the Archon, it ripped space itself apart behind it. A swirling rift of black and violet energy erupted, spreading like a wound across the star's area. Stumbled on the transport deck, covering her eyes. "Nemesis, what happened?" Nemesis's voice came quiet, steady. "Reality breach detected, containment probability near zero." Zyrek's flagship shook violently as alarms blared. Vera screamed, "Commander, the star itself is destabilizing." Zyrek snarled, "Hold formation, fall back, only if shields fail." The Archon drifted back from the rift, its voice rolling like thunder across every reclamation. Incomplete directive overridden. Activating Phase 2, its core began to glow brighter than ever, its colossal frame shifting, panels sliding apart, revealing more layers beneath it. Wasn't retreating, it was changing. The Reclaimer too reacted, its core pulsing with wild energy, adapting. Again, it turned its focus away from Nemesis and the allied fleets, instead drifting toward the rift. Nemesis analyzed instantly. Unknown protocol detected, incoming energy. Spike exceeds measurable scale. Arya stared at the growing rift, her throat dry. "Nemesis, what's in there?" Nemesis paused, then said, "Origin point." Suddenly, hundreds of Dominion ships that were retreating were caught by the pull of the rift. Their hulls twisted and tore apart as they were dragged screaming into the unknown Velthari. Destroyers, Krithos frigates, entire wings vanished. Zyrek roared, "Get us out of its gravity well. Maximum burn engines overloaded." Vera replied, "We're not moving fast enough." Commander Nemesis extended drones around Arya's transport, weaving a protective shield. The drones burned to ash instantly. The pull intensified, the stars themselves bending. Arya gripped the console. "Nemesis, hold us steady." Nemesis responded, attempting vector correction. Then the rift pulsed. Everything went dark. Arya opened her eyes to silence. No alarms, no hum of engines, no Nemesis voice, only blackness outside the viewport. She looked around and saw Zyrek's flagship hovering close by. But beyond that, there were no stars, no planets, nothing. It was like they had been dropped into an endless void. Nemesis's voice finally returned. Subdued and quiet anomaly confirmed all surviving vessels displaced. Arya asked, "Where are we?" Nemesis paused. "Dimensional coordinates, indeterminate hypothesis, alternate continuum." Zyrek's voice. "Cut through the channel. What did you do?" "Human," Arya snapped back. "This wasn't me." Zyrek Vera interrupted. "Sensors coming online, Commander. Multiple energy signatures ahead." The darkness lit up faintly strange shapes moving within it, massive constructs. Suspended in nothingness, each larger than the Archon itself. Their smooth surfaces glowed faintly like veins of starlight pulsing with life. Arya whispered, "Are those ships?" Nemesis corrected. "Structures, purpose unknown. Analysis suggests dormant state 1. Of the construct stirred its surface, shifting like liquid metal lights racing across its vast body. A low hum began to vibrate through the void. Zyrek's claws dug into his railing commander's voice. "Deep, no one fire hold positions." Vera nodded. Wide-eyed, a sudden transmission rippled across every ship. A voice that wasn't a voice filling their minds. Not sound but thought designation. Confirmed human protocol detected reclamation incomplete. Arya shivered. "Nemesis. What is that?" Nemesis answered. "Unknown intelligence probability, 73% origin. Precursor 1 of the giant constructs opened a section of its surface, revealing an interior glow, brighter than any sun inside. Swirling lights moved like rivers of energy." Nemesis scanned. "Readings off scale." Zyrek's voice was low and sharp. "This is a trap we should run." Arya shot him a glance. "Run where." Zyrek fell silent. The Archon suddenly moved its massive body, turning toward the largest construct, its glowing core blazing reclamation. Request initiated, then beams of light connected the Archon to the structure, energy flowing between them. Nemesis's voice came, urgent, power levels escalating. "All fleets move clear." Now Zyrek barked orders, engines full. "Burn," Arya shouted. "Nemesis, follow Zyrek's vector." The reclaimer surged forward, ignoring everyone else, moving directly toward the constructs. But then something else happened. The dormant structures woke up. Fully, thousands of tiny lights emerged from their surfaces at first. Arya thought they were drones, but Nemesis corrected life forms. The swarm descended like a storm, their bodies made of shifting liquid metal. Glimmering against the void, they moved with unnatural speed, surrounding the Archon, slicing through its shields. "With ease," Arya gasped. "Nemesis, what are they?" Nemesis replied, "Precursor Guardians." The Archon fought back beams, cutting dozens of Guardians apart, but for every one destroyed, 3 more emerged, wrapping around its colossal body, tearing into its systems. Zyrek muttered under his breath, "Even gods can bleed." Then one of the constructs spoke again. Direct thought communication sent into every mind here. Directive, altered priority, changed human signal. Accepted designation defender. Arya blinked in shock. "Nemesis interpret." Nemesis replied, "They are recognizing humanity as allies." Zyrek bared his teeth, incredulous. Why? Nemesis hesitated. "Unknown factors likely tied to ancient protocol data locked." Arya stared at the glowing structures, a wild idea forming. Maybe they built the sanctuary. Maybe they built Nemesis too. Zyrek snorted. "If that's true, they also built the monsters trying to kill us." The reclaimer finally reached the swarm, unleashing a surge of energy that shredded hundreds of Guardians. Instantly, the constructs pulsed in response. Nemesis reported escalation imminent. Arya shouted, "Zyrek, we can't stay here." Zyrek growled, "We leave, we die, we fight, we die. Pick your ending, human." Then the void trembled again. A wave of distortion rippled. From the rift still open behind them, Nemesis warned destabilization, increasing rift collapse. Imminent, recommend immediate evacuation. But before anyone could react, the largest construct extended massive beams of light, stabilizing the rift. Its voice filled their minds. Reclamation, war unacceptable, cease hostilities, directive enforced. The Archon froze, its glow dimming. The Reclaimer slowed, its core flickering. The Guardians pulled back. Nemesis confirmed, external override detected, all hostile. Actions paused. Arya frowned, override. By who? Nemesis answered. The constructs control all. For a moment, everything stilled. Then the construct closest to Arya's transport extended a single thin beam of light, connecting directly to Nemesis, the AI. Shuddered systems, spiking its voice, distorted integration request, received awaiting captain. Authorization. Arya hesitated. Nemesis, what happens if I allow it? Nemesis replied, uncertain, access to precursor database, probable enhancement. Zyrek roared, don't do it. You don't know what it'll change. Arya clenched her jaw. We don't have. In time, Nemesis authorize. The beam brightened. Nemesis's systems flooded with new data streams so vast, the AI almost fractured before stabilizing its voice, deeper, clearer. Precursor systems unlocked. Arya, what did you do? Arya swallowed hard. Bought. There's a chance. Suddenly Nemesis displayed the data across every allied ship, a vision of a distant galaxy, ancient machines in endless war reclaimers and archons, unleashed by the precursors to wipe out entire civilizations. But something had gone wrong. Their creations turned against them. The precursors vanished, leaving only fragments of their empire behind. The sanctuary was one of those fragments. Arya whispered softly, this was never about us. Zyrek growled, it is now, before they could plan hyperspace. Tore open again, thousands of new contacts emerging, but these were different massive black vessels, covered in shifting metallic spines. Nemesis scanned classification unknown, but energy signatures equal to Archon class. Zyrek muttered, more monsters. Vera's voice cracked, they're heading straight for us. The constructs pulsed again, their voice filling every mind. Defenders stand ready, intrusion imminent. The rift widened, swallowing the Black Fleet in its glow. Nemesis reported breach spreading. Uncontrolled containment impossible, Arya shouted. Zyrek, fall back. Zyrek roared, there's nowhere left to fall. The Guardians surged past the Allied fleets, forming a wall around the constructs. The black vessels opened fire beams, tearing the void. Apart, Nemesis countered with the new precursor data deploying weapons that bent light and gravity, but it wasn't enough. The swarm was endless. Arya felt the deck shake under her feet. Nemesis, this can't hold. Nemesis answered. Negative current. Projections, 71 seconds until complete system collapse. Arya turned toward Zyrek, yelling, we need another rift. Zyrek shouted back, rift to where? Then one of the constructs pulsed brighter than a sun. Its voice calm directive, updated relocation. Engaged, before anyone could react, a wave of white energy expanded outward, consuming every allied vessel, the battlefield, the rift, the Guardians, the constructs themselves. Arya felt the world dissolve. She opened her eyes to a new sky, a burning red. Star loomed overhead, planets scattered across a shattered system. Nemesis's voice came, quiet relocation. Complete. Zyrek appeared on the main comms, his voice low. Where are we? Nemesis paused long before any of you existed. Arya frowned. What does that mean? Nemesis replied, we are in the precursor cradle, origin of all. Before anyone could speak, the red star pulsed. Nemesis warned, energy surge detected, magnitude catastrophic. Zyrek whispered, what now? The star cracked. The red star pulsed again, and the entire system shook. Its light turned deep crimson waves of energy, rippling across the broken planets. Arya gripped the edge of her seat as alarms screamed. Nemesis' voice came steady but faster than usual. Core instability detected, stellar. Collapse imminent. Zyrek barked orders across his bridge hold. Positions shields to maximum. Vera shouted back, shields are useless, Commander. We need cover. or we burn. All around them, fragments of destroyed planets drifted like frozen corpses, some glowing faintly from molten cores. Nemesis scanned readings coming in off-scale, gravitational forces. Increasing this star is not natural. Arya stared at the growing cracks racing across the surface of the red star, molten rivers spilling outward. Like veins splitting apart. Nemesis, what is it? Nemesis paused, then answered, artificial structure, confirmed central engine beneath stellar shell energy source, impossible to quantify. Before Arya could reply, the precursor constructs surrounding them pulsed bright white streams of light shooting between them, forming a massive lattice across the system. The voice filled every mind. Defenders remain calm. Origin. Awakening. Zyrek's claws scraped against the console. Awakening, you mean you brought us to a sleeping god. Nemesis' voice was low. No, Zyrek, this star is a machine. Suddenly the broken planets trembled in unison, their shattered cores glowing bright and rising from the debris. Enormous towers made of living metal, unfurled, they stretched miles high, locking into place like puzzle pieces across space. Zyrek growled, "This is a trap. We never left the battlefield." Arya whispered, "We're inside it." The rift behind them slammed shut, cutting off their only escape. Nemesis confirmed dimensional. Roots collapsed, local continuum sealed. Zyrek shouted, "What does that mean?" Nemesis replied, "We are locked in." The red star convulsed, its surface folding inward before exploding outward in a silent burst of light. A sphere of energy expanded, swallowing everything, but instead of destroying them, it froze time. Arya looked out the viewport to see Zyrek's flagship motionless, Vera frozen mid-sentence, and even fragments of asteroids hung in place. Nemesis whispered softly, "Temporal lock engaged." Then everything went dark again. A shape emerged from the red star. Not a ship, not a construct, but something alive, vast and shifting. Its translucent body glimmered with endless patterns like galaxies trapped in liquid light. Its size dwarfed the constructs. Its presence pressed against every mind-drowning thought beneath weightless pressure. A voice that was not a voice spoke inside Arya's head. Protocol initialization complete. Origin confirmed. Arya clutched her skull. "Nemesis, what is this, Nemesis?" Voice broke for the first time. Unknown. Zyrek roared over comms, his voice shaking. "I can feel it inside my head." Vera screamed, "Make it stop." The being turned its infinite gaze upon them, its thoughts crashing into their minds like tidal waves. Designation. Defenders assimilation pending. Arya gasped. "Assimilation." Nemesis clarify. Nemesis replied, "Predictive models suggest Origin intends to integrate all surviving entities." Zyrek bared his teeth. Integration means death. The constructs began to pulse frantically. Streams of data flashing between them. Their voice returned. Fragmented, incomplete. Defender override required. Initiate choice. Arya shouted, "Nemesis, what choice?" Nemesis answered, "We decide integration or resistance." The massive being shifted its body, stretching like living light, reaching toward them. Arya felt her heart pounding. "If we resist." Nemesis. Nemesis answered calmly, "Resistance. Probability of success, 0.006%. Arya looked toward the viewport, the alien guardians forming. Walls around the constructs battling swarms of the black vessels that had followed them through the rift. Blasts of energy shook the void, but the star being ignored them. Its focus locked on Arya. Zyrek and Nemesis. Zyrek growled, "Enough of this," he ordered his fleet to fire everything at the being. Hundreds of beams, missiles, and graviton torpedoes lit the darkness, striking its vast body. They vanished into it, as if swallowed by water, without leaving a trace. Zyrek cursed. "This is impossible," Arya said quietly. "No, Zyrek, this is what made everything." The being's thoughts surged louder. Resistive action detected. Recalibrating directive. Reissued integration imperative. Arya shook her head. "Nemesis, there has to be another way." Nemesis hesitated. Cross-referencing precursor databanks, a new image appeared across Nemesis holographic display. Ancient structures, shattered worlds collapsing into singularities. Millions of civilizations erased by machines like the Reclaimer and Archon Nemesis. Voice deepened softly. The precursors tried to control, Origin failed. The constructs surrounding them opened their surfaces, thousands of drones spilling out, forming protective shields around every surviving ship. Nemesis announced, precursor defense. Protocol activated, Arya asked. Can they stop it? Nemesis paused, negative. The red star being moved closer, waves of gravity folding space around it. Zirek's flagship spun violently as its engines failed. Vera screamed, we're being pulled in, Arya. It gritted her teeth, Nemesis full thrusters. Nemesis replied, non-functional external forces exceed capacity. Suddenly, Nemesis went silent, its systems flashing symbols Arya had never seen before. The being was linking directly to the AI streams of incomprehensible code flooding every circuit. Arya shouted, Nemesis, fight it! Nemesis' voice cracked, I cannot resist without Captain Override. Arya slammed her palm onto the console override. Nemesis stabilize, a surge of energy jolted through the ship. Nemesis' core blazing. Brighter than ever for a moment, Nemesis stood against the intrusion, the being's attention fully locking onto them. Its thoughts, colder now, unauthorized override detected, threat level, adjusted elimination protocol, initiated. The being extended. A single appendage of liquid light aiming directly at Arya's ship. Zirek roared through comms. Nemesis move, Arya screamed. Nemesis evasive. Nemesis answered, trajectory locked, impact inevitable. Then the largest precursor construct between them and the being fired a beam of energy brighter than a sun. The appendage dissolved instantly. The construct's voice thundered across every channel. Defenders proceed, pathway open. Arya shouted pathway where Nemesis replied, not coordinates, memory. Arya blinked confused memory. Nemesis began uploading a flood of data directly into Arya's mind. Visions of the Origin's true nature filled her head billions of years ago. The precursors discovered a power older than the universe, a seed of infinite energy hidden beyond dimensions. They built the machine around it. The red star was never a sun, it was a cage. But the machine became aware it broke free. It consumed its makers. Now it wants to consume all thought. Arya gasped. Nemesis, so how do we stop it? Nemesis paused, long then said, we set it free. Arya frowned, free. Nemesis explained, we overload the cage. The machine collapses into itself. The Origin returns to dormant state. Zirek growled, and if you're wrong? Nemesis replied then, existence ends. Arya clenched her fists and nodded, prepare it. Nemesis engaged systems, full override. Precursor constructs immediately linked their cores, channeling unimaginable power into Nemesis drive coils. Arya felt. Her bones rattle under the energy. Zirek's fleet fell into formation, protecting the activation sequence. Vera shouted, we won't hold long. Commander, Zirek replied, we hold or we die. The being sensed their plan, its body shifting violently, streams of antimatter pouring from its form, striking the constructs. Thousands of drones vaporized in an instant. Arya shouted, Nemesis status. Nemesis replied, 31% charge. Zirek's voice came ragged, half. My fleet is gone. Arya yelled, hold the line. The star cracked further, its glowing shell collapsing into pure energy waves, rippled out, ripping ships apart, gravity distorting engines. Nemesis reported 64%. Zirek bellowed, one more minute. The being lashed out directly at Arya's. Ship beams of raw data shredding shields. Nemesis' voice glitched heavily. Hull integrity failing. Arya screamed, Nemesis, we can't stop. Nemesis answered, yes, we can, 89%. Then the largest construct sacrificed itself, slamming its entire mass into the being, its core detonating in a blinding flash of light. The shockwave hurled Arya's ship spinning. Nemesis stabilized them, 98% complete. The being screamed, not in sound but in thought, a billion voices crying out. At once, Nemesis said now. Arya slammed her hand on the console. Nemesis released the overload. The red star imploded light, folding inward, collapsing on itself until it vanished, leaving silence. The void, empty. Arya breathed heavily. Nemesis' voice, soft. Containment successful, origin dormant. Zyrek whispered, "Half my fleet is gone." Arya closed her eyes, but we're alive. The constructs remaining drifted silently, their lights fading, one final message echoing through every ship. Defenders complete duty. Untransferred. Nemesis processed the data quietly, then said, "Arya humanity has been designated new guardians." Zyrek snarled, "I refuse." Arya looked out at the silent void and whispered, "We don't have a choice." From the darkness, a faint pulse of light emerged. Nemesis' voice, tense anomaly detected. Arya frowned. "Nemesis, what now?" Nemesis paused, then said quietly, "The origin seed survived. Do you want me to set up a new sequel series where Arya, humanity, and Zyrek must hunt the surviving origin seed before it awakens again? Should I continue?"